What's up, chat? How's it going? Welcome, everybody, back to the stream. It's Wednesday. We're getting wacky because it's a wacky day today. We got a random FAQ drop. A ton of rules got updated. Basically, like every rules question that people had to make some, like particular rulings on in the last couple of weeks, updated on Warhammer community, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. We got random weird nerfs for World Eaters and Tau, like kind of out of nowhere. The Space Wolves Codex has been consigned to the Shadow Realm, I think, where the only good unit in it got nerfed into oblivion. So RIP to every Space Wolf player, I guess. And a bunch of other like random stuff. Then we're going to go through and talk about exactly what's going on. Anyway, chat, let's hop in and the GW is whacked Wednesday. That's a good one, yeah, for sure. It's definitely a weird one. I'm glad that we're going to get some updates on some FAQs that we don't have to make particular rulings on. But on the flip side, some of these are weird, so I don't know. Let's talk about it and sort of discuss what's going on. Big thing though is that before anyone asks, we'll cover this one thing. No points changes have occurred. I believe that the only points changes that they did was that they took out old index point values for things that now have codexes. So I know it looks like there is a Militarum field manual update. The update is that they took out old points that are no longer relevant. So it's like whatever. So there's no Death Guard changes, or there's no Death Guard nerfs, I should say. Sort of balanced nerfs. Knights are all the same. Thousand Suns are mostly the same. Some stuff got like adjusted in terms of mechanically, but no points values changed. So this isn't going to be like a huge meta shakeup, but what it will do is change how some particular detachments and things will work. So let's hop in. Which one of you psychos was leading Murder Fang to the battle leader? Yeah, that's a that was a weird one. That was clearly unintended. You weren't supposed to be able to attach a leader to a character to make the unit undamageable. I think it just blue screened the game as soon as you got attacked because you had to assign like saves, but you couldn't allocate to anything in the unit. There was no eligible allocation targets. So either they were invincible and immune to damage, or the game just ended. I'm not sure. So let's hop in and discuss some stuff. I guess first one, and this is exciting. We want to start with some positive stuff first. New drop pod data sheet. Babe, wake up. New drop pod just drop podded. This data sheet's fucking awesome, by the way. First of all, thing I like, this little diagram that tells you where the hull is. Gorgeous. More of this, please. I love it. I don't entirely know, like, how it works. This designer's note doesn't feel, like, expansive enough. Like, do you have to assemble it with the doors? Do the doors restrict placement? Like, I don't get it, but I do appreciate that they're like, hey, here's where you measure from the doors themselves on the drop pod. The petals of the drop pod, as it were, are not going to movement block an entire enemy army. Great. Also, some new abilities. Combat disembarkation. When you disembark after the unit's been set up on the battlefield, you are eligible to charge. Previously, for whatever reason, you couldn't charge after dropping this thing down because they forgot they said that. That's a big one. It is still probably a 9-inch charge, so it's not the biggest deal, but it is nice that it allows you to hop in. It does mention allowing you to place units on the doors, right? But like, if I have a building, am I allowed to place it where the building like would intersect with this door? Does the door count? Because it's a non-measuring part of a miniature. Which is like, I guess the answer is probably no. But then you have this like weird thing where it's like adds screening to the thing. I don't know. It's a whole deal. It doesn't make sense. Anyway, the other thing is that The transport capacity has been updated. Cannot transport Centurion, Gravis, Wolfpack, Jump Pack, Terminator, whatever. But it's a transport capacity 12 now. Oh, we fixed the drop pod, chat. We made the drop pod for being an unplayable piece of trash because it didn't allow you to embark anything that was relevant to embark into, and you also couldn't charge out of it. So it just basically, like, it let you set up on round 1, but your army was kind of worse. Now it allows you to actually embark an entire unit. It did go to OC0, so it's less relevant for objectives. That's kind of whatever, honestly. I think that's probably for the best. It still lets you score engage and behind enemy lines and stuff with it, but you can now put things like 10 Stern Guard veterans with an attached lieutenant or a captain or whatever. You can put in 10 Hell Blasters. You can put in 10 Infernus Marines with a captain in them. You can put in fucking Vulcan Heston with a bunch of Infernus Marines. Honestly, this is kind of like goated for Salamanders, to be perfectly honest. I also think it's a big deal for 10-man Stern Guard veteran squads, because getting them in rapid fire range is always the tough part. But if you just drop pod them in rapid fire range, it's going to work just fine. The downside previously is that you couldn't have characters like Tigurius or captains or sustained hits guys, Lieutenant Titus, and anyone with a bolter discipline. But like now you can. So this thing sounds great. I don't know what the points value is. It doesn't say here. I think it's probably going to be in the Munitorum, I imagine. I'm going to take a quick peek here. I bet it's just whatever it was previously, right? 70 points? Sign me up, dude. 70 points. It's like 10 or 15 off a normal transport. I guess 5 points off a Rhino, but you can't put anything in Rhinos and Space Marines anyway, so it's fine. And you get a unit that can come down and deliver your big beat stick Tacticus infantry squads. Love it. You could, yeah, I don't know. I think this thing is great. New drop pod, A+. Let's go. This is super sick. Being able to ingress Sword Brother efficiently is wild. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can hop in this thing and ingress it into an awkward position and then advance and charge the unit out of it. It's like anyone can have Uriel Ventress for 70 points. Yeah, I don't know. I love this because it didn't I guess it lost its guns. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, it doesn't have any Stormbolter anymore. But that's whatever. Nobody cared about the Stormbolter. That is funny though. It has Oath of Moment, but can't make attacks. That's actually hilarious. I'm just that's very good. But yeah, I think this is phenomenal. Absolutely awesome. The model itself is a lot bigger. So I guess I don't know, man. If the red portions in the diagram are the hull, then it is this. I think it's actually smaller than it was previously. Some people said that the actual conical pod part of the drop pod was much smaller, which would mean that if it hull measures right and it measures only to the wings, not the petals, then it's actually relatively skinny. If it measures out to the doors, then it probably is not that functional, to be honest. But if it just measures to the central column, then I think it's actually going to be pretty easy to place down. And then it does specify that you can place models on top of the doors of it. I think the only restriction is that the doors would restrict you from physically placing the miniature. So if you didn't have a space in a building or something because because the doors are out there, then that may prevent you from setting up. But I don't know. OC0 cannot do actions, that's correct. But it can score maneuver secondaries, and several Challenger missions will also count for them. Disappointed they didn't have the door slammed down as a melee attack. Yeah. Does D3 mortal wounds everything within 3? You can only charge out of it, no advance. Right. Yes. Yeah. You cannot advance. It counts as a Land Raider now. You move a Land Raider and you can disembark the unit, put them 3 inches away, and then at the end of the turn charge with them. It's the same idea. But what people are talking about in the chat is because it deep strikes, you could just use rapid ingress on it. You drop it out at the end of your opponent's movement phase, like you put your unit behind a wall, then you go back to your turn, call combat or call assault doctrine, advance, move your normal move, advance, then charge. So the actual amount, the distance you can get out of this thing is cool. And no one ever did that before because it had a 10 transport capacity. So there were no like relevant units that you could put in. Sometimes you would see like, you know, like random stuff in like company heroes plus a 5-man or whatever, or you do like a 6-man with 2 attached characters, like, but that was very rare. If trying to deliver melee with this thing, but now you can put full 10 men in it. It's awesome. Or 2 5s. You could like rapid ingress this thing in and drop it and put 2 5-man assault intercessors with Space Marine captains out in your opponent's deployment zone. Like that's kind of sweet. I think it's gonna be cool. You can't rapid. It can only be deployed during reinforcement steps. No, the drop pod assault means that during this, essentially, there's a lot of boilerplate in here that isn't relevant for Strike Force games for the most part. But it essentially means that during your movement phase, you can reserve it. During your first movement phase, you can bring it out of reserve. That's all that means. You can't rapid ingress it first round because its ability to ingress, its ability to defeat the normal reserves restrictions only comes into play during your movement phase, but it's still eligible to be brought in normally during that turn. And then otherwise then you have to do stuff. Yeah, the regular you just bring it out of regular deep strike otherwise. Might drop Drake, Grey Hunters plus Nyal. Yeah, definitely helps the Space Wolf 10-mans for sure. Like 10, having 30 OC just like pop up anywhere is kind of sweet. Which is cool. I think also there's like you can also do weird stuff because the unit inside it automatically disembarks immediately upon the upon deep strike resolving. You can do weird stuff where you can ingress it for overwatches and things. Like if your opponent sets up to charge, you ingress like 10 Infernus Marines 12 inches away from them, and then they disembark. You can overwatch the charging unit, and there's like nothing they can do about it. And you can do that anywhere from Battle Round 2 onwards. Turn 1 Deep Strike Lion, 5 Deathwing Knights, Astral and 10 Stern Guard, and just dump your opponents. Your entire army in your opponent's deployment zone. Oh, man. Anyway, chat. So, love the new drop pod profile. I think there's going to be a lot of like interesting unit combinations that are made viable by this new platform. The fact that it doesn't count for scoring is unfortunate, but a lot of times you had to set it up in a very particular place for that to matter anyway. And otherwise, it is better at delivering units that are relevant, which I think is phenomenal. Now, with that, I think we should just go through the updates. I guess we can look at index card updates first, and we can just take a peek at all of the different changes. I guess actually what we should do is start with rules commentary stuff, because I think there's some core rules changes in there. Here we go. I'm going to put in cursors in it so it gets to scout. Perfect. Scout out of the battle barge, you know, out of the strike cruiser. All right, there are, I believe, some changes here. If we go through the updated text, unfortunately, they don't. GW hate change lists, so we'll never see exactly what they are. Oh yes, this was a big change. So somebody was asking why I put Angron in the in the thumbnail, and the reason is that World Eaters actually ate a ton of nerfs. Angron in particular, I don't think has affected himself, but his faction is fucked. It's super duper duper shitty. Here's the first one. When using Fire Overwatch, is the selected unit the closest eligible target? Yes. If it is the closest unengaged visible enemy. A reversal of the previous ruling, which was that if you are, because Fire Overwatch restricts what your targeting is, only the unit that you are currently shooting at is an eligible target, which means automatically it's the closest eligible. Now that's no longer the case. Why does this matter? For stuff that says whenever you target the closest eligible target, get a bonus. For example, aggressors, when you target the closest eligible, get +1 AP. World Eaters Forge Friends, if you target the closest eligible within 18, get full rerolls to hit. Now those don't work if there's just something random standing in front of them. So like you can get around those by like putting a 5-man infantry squad in front of them. If they don't overwatch that, you move the thing that matters, and suddenly they lose all of their special bonuses. RIP Forge Friends. It was nice knowing you, but you suck, I guess. Didn't try Demonkin in time. Yeah, Demonkin also ate like a huge nerf. I think, like, in fairness, like most of the people are just playing Berserker Warband, but we'll talk about that in a sec. As someone who is a degenerate Khorne Demonkin apologist, I am very upset that Khorne Demonkin ate like a giant hit. Despite even like given the fact that it wasn't a particularly popular or even that effective of a detachment, it was really, really cool. And not so much anymore, but we'll talk about that when we get to the World Eater section. Forge Friends are still fine. Yeah, but they lost like one of the biggest use cases for I guess like 90% of my World Eaters experience, I should say, is in Khorne Demonkin. One of the only ways that you had to spend command points in that detachment was to or for you to spend, I should say, free stratagems in that detachment from your Demon Prince was to Overwatch with your Forge Fiends. And the Forge Fiends now, like I would say probably 50% of the time, no longer benefiting from their reroll ability, cuts the effectiveness of their Overwatch like by like, you know, I don't know, like 60%. It's not the greatest time to be alive for a Forge Fiend in that particular situation. All right. I believe that there are some other erratas to have occurred. There was a change to the vehicles with bases move to say that a unit can embark a friendly transport with a base after that unit ends a normal advance or fallback move within 3 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically with the transport. I don't know what the change there was. We do I have the June 25 rules commentary downloaded? I know I have the June 25 balanced data slate. Maybe I don't. Dang. What was the original ruling here? Did it say wholly within, and it was like weirdly like not contradictory to how the core rules worked? Previously, it said it did say wholly within 3 inches horizontally. So the embarkation rules is that the unit has to be within 3 inches of the transport, or each model in the unit has to be within 3 inches of the transport. This says that you can embark into transport in a base if the unit is within 3 inches. I don't think that they've changed what they needed to change here. This rule still feels a little bit broken, but it's just trying to marry the vehicle rules with the core rules. I don't think there's anything really different there. All right, that's it for core rules commentary. Big changes, that Overwatch change that restricts closest eligible stuff. Let's go through index card stuff. They forgot the every model clause. Yeah, that's the weird thing. I think, I don't know, that might end up needing some some event FAQs, which actually sucks. Like this, I think is like trying to mesh all of the event FAQs that people have been having to build because all of their recent like codexes have been kind of fucked, and it seems like they might need some more work. I don't know. What changed here? Can Grey Knight's Storm Raven gunship Stormstrike missile launcher intentionally have, or does the Grey Knight Storm Raven gunship Stormstrike missile launcher intentionally have a different profile to the Space Marine Storm Raven gunship Stormstrike missile launcher? The answer is yes. A dumb FAQ. Whatever it says in the datasheet is the rule. You don't. Who asked this? Fucking play by the rules, dude, until it gets changed. All right. What a waste of time that was. Great. Is the rule that you wrote supposed to be on the data sheet? Yes. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. Insane. All right. What should we move on to next? Chat. Oh, balanced data slate stuff. There are some changes to Tau within the balanced data slate, and we can kind of like hop over into those. Mostly a clarification because originally the Tau rule, and this is unfortunately something that happens every time they rewrite an army ability, is that they do often introduce some like weird idiosyncrasies because the verbiage of the original ability and the updated one aren't necessarily the case. Who has ever seen a Grey Knight Storm Raven on the table? Yeah, that's why nobody asked that question before. They're like, whatever, get out of here. All right, so so for the greater good, says during your shooting phase, each observer unit that has not been selected to shoot this phase. I do have the original balance data slate here, actually, so we can take a peek at exactly what has been updated on this update. If you'll give me a moment. From the June one. June data slate. Let's go. Oh, nope, my recording fucked up. Just kidding. It didn't export correctly. Yep, cool. All right. Well, I'll go fuck myself, I guess. I should have this saved to my hard drive. I just don't know where. Dang it. I'm sorry, chat. I thought I had the original verbiage in this saved, but apparently Adobe crashed and didn't do it. All right. Well, I'm going to give up. So for the greater good has been changed. Each observer unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase and is eligible to shoot selects. Okay. I know what changed. So previously it was at the start of your shooting phase. You would choose observer units. The thing that did was it made it so that if you had like things that repositioned or that weren't on the battlefield at the start of the shooting phase were ineligible to be spotted. And so you would create these weird situations. Like if you were fighting a dedicated transport, like you could spot the transport, but you couldn't spot the unit inside because you had to kill the transport and then the unit inside disembarks and they're just vibing. But now that it's anytime during your shooting phase, you can kill the transport and then select your observer. It sounds like to me that they made it so that. Oh no, they didn't change it. Just kidding. No, it's still the same. All right, I don't know what changed here. I'm gonna level chat. I have no fucking idea. I don't know. I guess it's like it clarified that like you haven't been selected to shoot yet. Yeah, this is the changes that you can choose things as transports. No, because so I thought that was the change, but they kept this the start of the shooting phase clause. Oh no, okay, this is stupid. This is dumb. This is like dumb complicated. So okay. So here, at the start of the shooting phase, you can select units to become observer units. Then, for each observer unit, anytime during the shooting phase, you can select a spotted unit, and you get the bonus against the spotted unit. So at the start of the phase, you have to tell your opponent which of your units are observing, but you don't have to declare what they're observing until later during the phase. Oh my god. Okay. All right. That's not too bad. That's extremely unintuitive, but I understand how they have to do it. Just fucking get rid of transports, chat. Hey, can we just axe transports? And then we don't have to deal with any of this shit. Stupid fucking transports. So if you have something that's not on the table at the start of your shooting phase, you can select a unit to observe. Then when that unit becomes eligible, you can select them as the observation target at some point. Okay, I get it. Goddamn transports. Oh, man. Incredible. Yep. That's very confusing, but I understand how it works. So at the start of the shooting phase, you tell your opponent, I'm going to observe with my stealth suits and my pathfinders. And then you go, I'm going to start shooting. I'll start by observing that unit with the stealth suits. I'll resolve a bunch of attacks against it. And then I'll move on and I'll observe I'll spot with the second observer unit into this other thing. And then I'll resolve attacks against them in whatever order we want. This is going to get fucked up so bad. Because people are going to be like, oh, I'm gonna spot these things, and then halfway through the phase, they're gonna be like, "Oh, I should have spotted this guy," but then they're like, it could be gaining the spot bonus on observer units because they haven't correctly indicated them if they decide to change their mind or whatever. This feels very rife for confusion, but that's okay. I don't know. It's not. Yeah, I don't know. It's fine. It's just going to require Tau players be on the ball. And unfortunately, I think that there's going to be some people who fuck it up. But that's okay. We can move on. We're deep into Tau. Let's move on and talk about some other stuff. It's funny that the problem child of that ability is fucking transports. And we're like, let's rewrite this entire army ability instead of just dealing with transports. But that's okay. I don't like transports, and I won't make a secret of it. All right. The other thing, which to be honest, I thought would have been in the balanced data slate, but I guess not. The other thing that changed is that the Patient Hunter detachment ability for Kauyon has been clarified so that the ignore modifiers clause is only in effect for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th battle rounds. Previously, it said battle round 3 onwards, you gain sustained 1. Also, as long as you're guided, gain ignore modifiers. And everyone was like, so there's the also in only the three battle rounds 3+? And the answer was no, because it didn't say that, but now it does. So now the entire Kauyon detachment ability only comes into play during battle round 3 onwards. That's done. Done and done. Was it too good to just let you choose spotters anytime? Yeah, I don't know. It does feel like that would have been okay, but I don't know. It's weird. That actually feels like it ended up being kind of like a downgrade. Like now your spotters work for everyone, but you have to pre-declare whether they're gaining the spotted bonus or not, which is weird. So I don't know. How would I change transports? I don't know. Just get rid of them. But also, just make them kill everyone inside when they die. Just make them when a transport's destroyed, the whole unit's destroyed inside. Just get everyone's dead. Then no one will play that. We don't have to deal with them anymore. That would be my preferred response. Speaking as someone who just made a video about how playing a Salamander's list with 6 dedicated transports in it. Turns out it's really good, so fuck it. Get out of here. So 3rd edition, is that how it worked in 3rd? I don't remember. That was kind of before my time. All right, let's move on and we can talk about some other stuff. I think the big one that I think a lot of people, well, we talked about, we mentioned world eaters before. Let's move on and talk about world eaters real quick because we'll rip this band-aid off. This is a really long FAQ, by the way. So we talked about forge feeds have been changed so that now when they Overwatch, they have to literally target the closest thing with Overwatch in order to get their rerolls. It doesn't automatically trigger. Here's a huge update, which makes me sad. There is a thing about transports in here because previously, if you killed a transport during your own turn, I think that the resolution of the summon by slaughter stratagem and disembarkation were simultaneous. So you could fuck with people's disembark, I think, by summoning a bloodletter unit onto a transport that was destroyed. They have clarified that the stratagem always takes place last. So you disembark from a transport first, then you set up a bloodletter unit from it. However, that doesn't fucking matter because the new rule is that your bloodletters must always go 6 inches horizontally away from all enemy units. Now, in fairness, was this stratagem like wildly abusive when you could go anywhere outside of engagement range of enemies? Maybe. Also, it was core Demonkin. So the only cool thing that this detachment had was A, it can take Scarbrand. Sweet. B, it can summon bloodletters on you and take your objective. There's 2 cool things. Now it just gets Scarbrand, but you basically don't have a detachment ability because its detachment ability is fucking horrible. And you have like a cool buff for World Eaters guys, I guess. But you could just be getting the Lance buff for World Eaters that you get from Khorne Demonkin by playing Berserker Warband. And you get +1 attack. So just go play Berserker Warband. Unfortunate. This stratagem, I think this detachment goes from playing like 3 bloodletter units to maybe playing 1 to like do an objective thing maybe one time. But this is like such a huge nerf. I definitely don't think that you focus on bloodletters particularly highly. So it's unfortunate. I think they're just like pushing World Eaters into like more of a mono build, which sucks. But it is what it is. I don't know. Now you can charge if you kill something in the charge phase. Oh, that's true. That was something we missed. I'm sorry, chat. You're right. That was something we missed in the core rule update. I did see that and I forgot about it. If we go back to the core rules updates, there is a change that now we have to find it. Now you previously were only eligible to charge. You checked for charge eligibility at the start of the charge phase. I don't know why my document is zooming like this. There we go. Previously, you only checked for charge eligibility at the start of the charge phase. So if you were not within 12 inches of any enemy units at the beginning of the charge phase, you were ineligible to charge. That created some really weird situations where, for example, if you had 2 enemy units standing near each other and you were charging from kind of far away, you or let's say you had 2 of your own units standing kind of far away from 2 enemy units, like 2 units within 12 inches of each other and 2 units not within 12 inches. If your unit charges your opponent's unit, the other unit, if the enemy unit started more than 12 inches away from you, it couldn't heroically intervene because it wasn't eligible to declare a charge at the start of the phase. However, if they were and they intervened, your second unit couldn't charge them because they started outside 12 inches of enemy units. So there was like, almost never came up, but there was an incredibly weird corner case where you could like heroically intervene up to an enemy unit and they would be ineligible to charge you because you started more than 12 inches apart and then just made a big intervention or something. The other thing that happened is that bloodletters inside Summoned by Slaughter, if you killed someone with impact mortals like Tank Shock or Blood Crushers, you could destroy their unit and then drop a bloodletter unit, but they would be ineligible to charge because they weren't on the battlefield at the start. Now that doesn't matter. Now, as long as they are within 12 inches anytime during the charge phase, they're fine. So that is an update for that. And it does like sort of cut out that weird corner case where sometimes you just get like wrecked really bad. Have we talked about the new embark rule? Yeah, we did talk about the new embark rule. That feels like it's a mistake. I wouldn't be surprised if that gets FAQ, or if that has to get changed again. It's because the core rule is that you can embark with if you are completely within 3 inches of a vehicle. The updated rule was that you could embark if you were wholly within 3 inches, which was a mistake. And then the new rule is you can embark if you are within 3 inches of a vehicle with a base, which is, I think, a mistake, but in the opposite direction. So I think they're just keep mucking it up. But whatever. We'll see. Back to World Eaters, though. Corn Berserkers and Jackals, I guess, can't stack the effects of multiple icons of Corn. Now, if you just have one or more of them, they come into play. A clarification that you can trigger the Hellbrute's Frenzy ability more than once. This was already in there, but I think that a lot of the FAQs for fight on target were in Murder Fang's entry in the index FAQ. So if those go away, then they would actually remove those rulings from the record. And it looks like they're being moved into the World Eaters document, which is good. So this includes, can Frenzy allow you to fight when you're not within engagement range? The answer is no, unless it's the fight phase and you're able to pile in. So that's interesting. It basically allowed you to fight if you were eligible to fight, but generally speaking, you weren't eligible to fight in the shooting phase. So if you got shot, then you would have a tough time doing it. Yeah, which they clarify back here. The Frenzy ability allows you to fight in the shooting phase and shoot in the fight phase, but the answer is yes, but only if you have eligible targets to be able to do so. In most cases, it means you cannot shoot in the fight phase, as you do not benefit from big guns that retire in the fight phase. And it only allows you to fight if you could engage an enemy. So if you get shot by being close to people, I also believe that there's an FAQ that says you can't pile in. So I think you would need to be in the engagement range and shot while in engagement range, I think, to be eligible to then fight in the shooting phase. So it only works when somebody's big gun's never retiring against you, I believe. Here's a big change, actually. If a World Eater's Hellbrute Frenzy ability, and this is actually one that was kind of on the books, and I believe I have to reverse my ruling now because of this on my circuit rulings. Can you still select, if you trigger a Frenzy ability, can you still select that unit to shoot or fight? The answer is yes. Technically, that's not entirely correct. It was, I think, errated that way, and then the errata that made it that way was removed. And it's like a weird situation because if you have already shot or fought, if you have already fought, you're not eligible to be selected to fight. So you can continue to fight thanks to the ability, but you can't be selected normally if you've already attacked. So if you trigger Frenzy, if the rules is written there's that if you trigger Frenzy before you've been activated normally, you lose your normal activation. But obviously they're reversing that, so that's it's much cleaner this way. You don't have to keep track of exactly which kind of attack you've made yet, which is really annoying for the limited amount of time where it did work that way. So I'm glad that we just have this FAQ on the books. While using Khorne Demonkin, can you select a character with the Disciple of Khorne enhancement to be the Warlord? The answer is no. Is that true? I thought that gives you the keyword later in the game, right? Did we talk about that? I thought we had a whole discussion about this. This is weird. Because so the rule is that a Legion of Blood, Blood Legion units cannot be the army's warlord. Where is this? It's the Pact of Blood army ability. Oh, no, it's in the detachment ability because it says you can include Blood Legion units in your army, but they cannot be the warlord. No Blood Legion model from your army can be the warlord. But Disciples of Khorne doesn't remove the World Eaters, or it doesn't add the Blood Legion faction keyword to the model until the battle formation step. So, but you choose Warlord during muster armies. Why would this be the case? This also, I think, allows you to build illegal lists. What the fuck? Why would they rule this way? like unironically, why would they rule this way? I don't understand. So, Disciple of Khorne, by the way, for those who don't know, this enhancement allows you to join Blood Crusher. You put it on Juggernaut Lord, and it allows you to join Blood Crusher units. When you do, the model becomes a Blood Legion unit instead of a World Eaters unit. But why that guy would be ineligible to be your warlord in the before you go to battle formations is flabbergasting to me. I feel like this creates problems with mustering. So the final step of the sequence is select warlord. Which means if you take only a Disciple of Khorne, right? You've successfully gone through every single step of the muster sequence until step 6. So what happens if you have only a Disciple of Khorne who is a World Eaters unit at the time you get to this step, and also Blood Legion units? Like, is your army illegal? That's so fucking weird. I don't understand, chat. The other thing was that the reason that this came up as an interesting question was that it was unclear whether or not the Disciple of Khorne, or I was confused because I didn't understand how the enhancement worked, about whether or not the Disciple of Khorne character counts against your 1,000 points that you can take of Blood Legion units inside this detachment. The answer is that it doesn't, because he's not a Blood Legion unit while you're building the army, which is why this ruling makes absolutely no sense. This is also almost certainly doesn't matter, because you're going to have some other character in your army that's eligible. But it's so weird. I don't get it. Yeah, is it legal to then play without a warlord to not get Layload the Tyranid? What happens if I get to muster armies and then I don't have an eligible warlord? Previously it didn't really matter that much, but now I just have a character who has all the relevant keywords, but just this FAQ says I can't select him. I don't get it. It's so weird. What is this update, chat? It's the weirdest thing. All right, we talked about World Eaters for long enough. I don't understand that ruling makes no sense to me. Let's move on and talk about some other sort of high tier stuff. I think we should talk about Thousand Suns next, if we're sort of following the thing. Spaghetti code, but for written rules. Yeah, I mean, rules are just a software you play on humans, basically. Yeah, I guess it says that you have to include a character eligible to be your warlord, which I guess that FAQ would preclude, right? Because if you put the enhancements on him, that he's no longer eligible. But I don't understand why he's not eligible. Besides, they just decided. we're actually back in 8th edition, where it's they just make rulings that make no sense and contradict each other all the time. Ugh, I hate it. Fucking goddamn it. This is not a good update. All right, Thousand Suns. Let's move on and start talking about a different thing. I feel like all the FAQs are written by several teams that have no communication with each other. That might be true. I don't really understand, but it is what it is. We'll talk about Thousand Suns stuff. Do you need to have the Warlord keyword? You get the Warlord keyword if you become the Warlord, essentially. Of the 1,000 nerfs, yeah. So Warp Meld Pact only now affects infantry or mounted units. It can no longer affect mutilated vortex beasts. Which honestly, we're like, I'll level with you, chat. I thought that this was okay. It didn't. The -1 to wound thing, like, did feel relevant for the mutilated vortex beasts, but it also, like, it did damage to them. And I guess if you focused the army on them, like, it was a lot of stuff. The real abusive part about this detachment, in my opinion, was the pulling units or pulling models before attacks got sequenced. Like the -1 to wound on a mutilated vortex beast felt very strong, but maybe I'm coping. It didn't even playing against it. It didn't feel like it was the craziest thing in the world. But I don't know. Maybe that's silly. But anyway, the +1 to wound did feel pretty good, in fairness, because they have a bunch of like sort of mid strength attacks, so the +1 to wound on them felt really strong. But again, like they're just burning themselves out eventually. It just makes them receive damage. I don't know. Now here's how Warp Meld Pact works. When you make a Warp Meld sacrifice at the end of the phase, the mutant suffers D3 mortal wounds. So this is actually kind of a side grade to the units that can still use them. It doesn't let you take models out of line of sight or out of engagement of enemies to fizzle their attacks. But it also means that at the time that they're rolling their attacks, you haven't yet suffered the damage, right? So they may need to inflict more damage to actually kill you. It's definitely not as good as it was, but it's not like entirely a nerf. Because you don't pre-receive the damage before they attack you. Yeah, the pulling out of rage thing was really dumb. I'm really glad that that's gone. That was almost certainly unintended. It was just based on how they elected to rule to write the rules commentary. Mutilated Vortex Beast, Immaterial Flare. Now is no longer cumulative with any other modifiers to the psychic test result. So this is a really big hit to Grand Coven, because you would be taking Magnus and using the reroll strat to try to guarantee that you got empowered rituals off. So Magnus has a built-in +2 to cast, and when you channel within 6 inches of a vortex beast, you got +1. So he could be +3, and then you could pay a CP to reroll all those dice. So you could try to make sure that you got like max power doom bolts or flat 6-inch move temporal surges off. Now that's no longer the case. You're capped at +2 for Magnus, and if you have any other bonuses from other detachments or whatever, then that is not cumulative. But the Vortex Beast required that you empowered, so it also did damage to you. And to be honest, like, I kind of like it when Thousand Suns are more deterministic. Even as somebody who played against Thousand Suns, I sort of appreciate it when Thousand Suns are better at like doing stuff. So I don't know. I don't like this. I wish that they would just hit these things with points instead of rewriting their core rules. It's very weird. The Chaos Rhino for Thousand Suns did get its firing deck back. It's a very stupid situation because they forgot to reprint firing deck on it 3 times or 3 times. Once in the index, which they fixed, then in the codex, which they didn't fix, then in the codex FAQ, which they didn't fix. Now the second round of FAQs, they finally added it back in. They had 5 chances to add firing deck, and they've only done it 2 of the 5. Hilarious. Clarification to Risen Rubrique. If you have a character inside a unit of Risen Rubrique, Rubric Marines, the character gains infiltrators, which is actually sick. So that's really cool. That's kind of a big deal for the Rubric detachment, because you may be able to, sort of like, I don't know, do some cool pushes with that. I don't know. Getting like Infernal Masters to forward deploy and in the middle of the table could actually be sweet. kind of into that. All right, let's go down the list. We've talked about Tau. We've talked about Thousand Suns. We talked about World Eaters. Let's talk about Space Wolves. Are we ready, chat? Are we ready for the sadness? I hope everybody is prepared to cry their hearts out about this Space Wolves. This horrendous travesty of a Space Wolves codex. Because oh boy, oh boy, chat. So first of all, clarification to Logan. Logan, I think didn't have the Lord of Deceit clause where like it doesn't stack with other Lords of Deceit because they changed it so that every Lord of Deceit was an aura, so it didn't stack with other auras of the same name. So you couldn't stack Lords of Deceit. However, obviously, Logan had a different one called Guile of the Wolf. Obviously, they have updated that, so it is in line with other Lords of Deceit. Makes total sense. Super quick, before we talk about this trash, Wolfguard head takers can now use their ability to select a quarry while in a transport. That is beneficial. You don't have to do weird things to try to get head takers to get their Devastating Wounds ability, because technically it turns off while you're embarked in a transport. One of the dumbest rules that they've ever written, but it is what it is. Also, not entirely... not actually against the core rules, but they made a commentary saying that army abilities or model datasheet abilities have no effect while you're inside a transport. Makes no sense, but it is what it is. But they fixed that one, so this one now does, so that's cool. Last one is the Iron Priest. Oh boy. So the Iron Priest previously gave every ranged weapon equipped to an Adeptus Astartes vehicle rapid fire 1, which was good. I'm gonna level with you. Single-handedly salvaged the entire codex, for me at least. It has a bunch of really mediocre detachments, as well as a couple of okay data sheets. But the downside, obviously, is that you lose out on all of the core Space Marine stuff, and none of the Space Wolf stuff is enter synergy with the other Space Marine detachments. Benefit, though, you got the Iron Priests, which could give like potentially several additional anti-tank attacks to like a Predator Annihilator. So like a Predator Annihilator would be shooting a twin-linked turret las cannon, a hunter killer missile, and 2 sponson las cannons, would get 4 additional d6 damage attacks. Is that phenomenal? Yes. The flip side is that you're losing out on +1 to hit, which is like probably about half as effective in that situation. That compared to a normal Predator inside normal Space Marines is losing on +1 to hit from a Tech Marine, right? And potentially like +1 to wound from Oath of Moment. The benefit of getting a bunch of extra attacks, pretty good. And given the fact that the rest of the codex is a bunch of trash, or at least sort of mediocre stuff, I think it was okay. Now it's select 1 weapon equipped by the model, so you can put it on a Lancer to give it 1 extra shot within 48 inches. Or a Repulsor Executioner within 36 can get an extra shot on their big gun. Probably a one-off in the instances where you're playing those specific units. But, oh boy, is this a huge downgrade. Space Wolves deserve this nerf. They were dominating the competitive scene for too long. It's so true, chat. Space Wolves... The Space Wolf Codex was too strong. It needed to be toned down. Oh, man, dude. It feels bad. And honestly, it feels bad, not like necessarily because like the Space Wolves have nothing going for them, but it feels bad because of the comparison. Like, why, if I'm playing vehicles, why would I ever not play Ultramarines? Or, like, you know, Salamanders or something different that gets the +1 to wound oath. The benefit was that you could get a higher attack volume if you took these characters, which in fairness were not expensive. And that was probably the weird part about it was they released it like 60 points. I was like, whoa, okay, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. No, they just don't do that. Gonna lose it for a Lancer anyway. Yeah, and to be honest, like, I mean, we've been playing it in the server with the codex rules and because they were in Militarum for a while, and honestly, it was really good. It was not broken. It was definitely extremely strong. I don't want to, like, you know, 190 points for a tank with essentially like 7 las cannons on it is pretty good. Plus a little character who's actually relevant, you know. He's a lone operative sometimes, and he's like actually okay in melee. He's got a cool gun. But it wasn't like that craziest thing ever. You're paying Vindicator prices for a unit with a Predator survivability. And they shoot a little bit farther than a Vindicator does for like more consistency, but that's the trade-off, right? And now that this has changed, I don't know. I'm having trouble like identifying an interesting and unique thing that Space Wolves do. Especially because they feel especially bad right now because the metagame is very toxic to like strength 5 attacks, because a lot of times you're punching into like T10 vehicles and T11 super heavies, and the entire codex is strength 5 basically, besides like Arjack and Ragnar and Logan Grimner. Everyone's just got a power sword, and then being a power sword in a metagame of super heavies feels really bad. So I don't know. If Wolfguard Head Takers got +1 strength against their quarry, unironically, I think that would be kind of a big deal. But the devastating wounds is like situationally good. It's like strong to have, but it doesn't ever feel like it's that worth like going out of your way to try to instigate. Yeah, like the trade-off between a priest plus a predator is that the predator gets like some effect at longer range, right? But is easier to kill for basically exactly the same cost and very similar damage output. But now you just take a Vindicator and play Ultramarines. It's like, and he's like extra wounds and extra save. Like, okay, I guess it's 1 speed faster and you get a utility unit with it. Like, sure. That you have to like babysit it with. I don't know. I thought that combo was good and cool, and it gave Space Wolves something unique to do, and now Space Wolves are just weird, and they can take Thunderwolf Cavalry sometimes, and I guess Wolfen are good, but I don't know. All right, well, we ripped that Band-Aid off. RIP Space Wolves. Having a tough time with that codex. I guess we can go through Orcs. Don't know if there are any particularly big changes to Orcs. Oh yeah, they changed the big mech. Now allows you to automatically move through enemies and automatically pass desperate escapes, which is cool, I guess. Because he just teleports you out of melee, which is neat. It feels like this guy allowing you to like fall back and shoot or something would be cool, but it's not that big of a deal. Tyranids Subterranean Assault. I don't know if they changed anything in here immediately. I have no idea. If somebody knows if they changed anything. Oh, they changed the. I don't know what they changed, actually. I have no I have no concept. If somebody knows what they changed inside Subterranean Assault, because I don't believe these get marked with stuff, then who knows? Oh, the tunnel network stops you from doing it in engagement range. That's the thing. Yeah. So previously, tunnel network had literally no targeting restrictions, which is fucking wild. You could pull units out of engagement range and then redeploy them. I think clearly an oversight, but ridiculously strong. Now it works like you would expect it to work. So that's fair. I remember that one. Tunnel network strat sucks because it's basically the same as retreat below in this attachment. No, it's actually much different. You can do it turn 1. If you have turn 1, if bottom of turn 1, you can do it. It's also in addition to your retreat belows. And it, I don't know, is good. So like you can do it sort of reactively, right? At the end of the movement phase. Oh, here's the other reason it's good. You ready? Is that it's the same timing as rapid ingress. So let's say, for example, you go at the end of my movement phase. You go to your opponent. You say, it's the end of my movement phase. Do we have any activated abilities to trigger? I'm going to tunnel network. And your opponent goes, I'm going to rapid ingress. And you go, okay, cool. And they place the rapid ingress. And then you go, I'm going to tunnel network and then unsee that guy and shoot him. which is crazy. Or they go like, I'm gonna rapid ingress to like go charge a guy, and you just pull him out. Well, you tunnel network him away. So there's like a bunch of really weird stuff you can do with it. The stratagem's actually slaps. But the big thing is that you can do it in addition to your retreat belows. So like you can pull 2 burrowers into reserve, place them, then tunnel network, right? So like you can have 3 units repositioning that weren't like that were there at the end of the previous turn, essentially. So that's the huge thing. It's just a good strat chat. I don't know. It doesn't let you fall back for free, but that's fine. Let's talk about Tyranids. I believe that there's a Tyranid update. Is there? Maybe I'm wrong. Was that literally the only one? No, there is an update for Tyranids. While we're in the Tyranid faction, we'll talk about that. Yeah, okay. They did include that update in the document. There's a clarification here, which is good because we get to stop having this conversation. While using subterranean assault, does a Moloch tear from the deep trigger when arriving via a tunnel marker? No. The technical definition is there an empty page here? Oh no, it's just doesn't show up in my preview. The rationale why is that you are not arriving from deep strike, you are arriving from surprise assaults. Deep strike is the ability that allowed you to enter in reserve, but you only arrive using deep strike when you use the 9-inch away from enemy ability. That is rules as written. It was a little bit weird to suss out. I think I played it wrong, at least in my first game or something, and a lot of people were confused about how that works. But that is correct. That's good. Good update. Now we can take it out of all of our event FAQs. Moving down the line. Codex Supplement Dark Angels. While using Wrath of the Rock, can you use the charge move from Leonine Aggression to move a unit out of engagement range with another unit? So here's the thing. Why can we use this while we're in melee? Right? Because it's Wrath of the Rock. The Leonine Aggression lets you charge at the end of your opponent's charge phase, right? The issue is that there's no reason for it to be triggerable while you're engaged, right? Because it doesn't require that your unit is eligible to charge, and it doesn't require that they're unengaged. So we have this FAQ that says like, oh, you can't charge out of engagement range with someone, because theoretically, you could be engaged with someone and then target someone else 3 inches away and then charge the second unit, right? And nothing says you can't do that. This FAQ says you can't move out of engagement range with the first unit, but why does the stratagem let you do that? Like, why are we even allowing that in the first place? It feels like so clearly an oversight. I don't get it. This is a good nerf to the strat, I think, because there's going to be a situation where your opponent your Dark Angels player goes, well, technically, I'm going to be able to resolve this charge and move in such a way that I'm no longer engaged by your second unit, so they will not be able to attack me. And the player against them is going to be like, excuse me? What did you just say to me? And that is technically correct, although it feels so wholly unintended. I don't get it. I don't understand it. But it's good that we have this, I guess. You still can trigger Leonine Aggression in melee. You just can't extricate yourself from the engagement with it. Just like, sure, I guess. Whatever you say, buddy. Yeah, player 2 is like, yeah, whatever, man. I'm going home. This is dumb. You know what? Fair, dude. Playing as Dark Angels. We'll save the general index card thing for later, I think. Index Chaos Demons. Let's go. Oh, there's no erratas here, are there? You have to go here for that? We already looked at this one. When did Chaos Demons get updated, chat? Is there a shadow update in here that I don't know? Did they get like a 9th detachment for some reason? All right, I'm gonna level. I'm not gonna go through the entire Chaos Demon Index word by word. There's only 34 pages. Yeah, I'm sure that's riveting content that everyone wants to see. Right? Is me going through the entire Chaos Demons Index to find out what they figured, what they fixed. Chaos Knights Codex got an update. Imperious Advance until the now works on normal advance, fallback, or charge moves. When doing so, it can move within engagement range of models that, unless it made a charge move, can end within engagement range of them. And any desperate escape does automatically pass. So this is the move through wall strat. I don't know what the original verbiage was. Did it only work on normal moves, but it was usable in the charge phase? Is that the issue? I have the codex on my hard drive. Oh, it's this one. Here we go. Imperious Advance. Each time a model in one of your units makes a move, it can do so through models and terrain features. Oh, okay. So it didn't specify what kind of move it worked on. It just worked on any move. And it didn't allow you to charge into an engagement range of enemies, which is obviously clearly a mistake. Okay, I understand. I guess that's a little bit weird. I guess I don't know what other kinds of moves you make during the movement or charge phase that would constitute that, but maybe it matters. I don't know. Is there like some sort of reactive effect maybe that it would work on? The Lordship of Change is bracketed now at 7 wounds instead of 6. Oh. Cool. Good job, Lordship of Change. I'm proud of you, buddy. You're a little bit better. Aeldari. What do we got for Eldar? Unshrouded Truth. Now targets an Asuryani infantry unit that was not set up on the battlefield this phase and has not been selected to move. Unfortunate. So the weird thing about this was that it was usable anytime during the movement phase. This is the stratagem in Seer Council that allows you to redeploy an infantry unit. So you could use it during your reinforcement step on anything, as long as it had not yet moved. And if you had just set up a reinforcement, clearly it didn't move yet. So the combo was you could take Swooping Hawks and drop them next to somebody with Behareth to do mortal wounds to them. Then Unshrouded Truth to pull them back somewhere else. Now you cannot do that, which is sad. RIP Seer Council. Literally unplayable now. After using Torque of Moray Hague, must your opponent continue to use the selected stratagem at the increased cost if they have the necessary command points available? Okay, I don't know what this is referring to. What is that? What does that do? The Torque of Moray Hague. Once per turn, when your opponent targets a unit in their army within 12 inches of the bearer of the stratagem, this bearer can use the enhancement. If it does, increase the command point cost of that usage of that stratagem by 1. So you can't say, if you have 2 CP, you can't say, oh, I'm going to command reroll, and your opponent goes Torque of Moray Hague. It costs 2 now. And you go, I'm just not going to do it. If you're going to use that, I won't do it. You've already used the strat, my guy. The enhancement literally says, increase the cost of that usage by 1. So you must pay that increased cost. That is also on Seer Council. In addition, after using Torque of Moray Hague, if my opponent does not have the necessary command points available before the selected stratagem, what happens? No CP are spent and the stratagem's effects are not resolved. But it still counts as having been used. Ooh, it's actually kind of sick. If your opponent has 1 CP, you could just burn their like command reroll for the phase. Cool. If an Aspect Warriors unit with an unused Aspect Shrine token is destroyed, do characters that were attached to the unit keep those Aspect Shrine tokens? No, of course not. So it's an ability on the Aspect Warriors data sheet. That would be wild. When using the Incarn's ethereal form, could you imagine if they said yes there? With this update, I have no idea what to expect. They could very well have just said yes. And you're like, wait a minute, does that transfer to other things? If I have unused effects, can I retain those on an attached character? That'd be wild. I can put like Armorium cherubs onto like, you know, my dominions, like palatines or whatever. If an aspect were all right, we already read that one. When using Incarn's ethereal deform ability, do I choose for it to regain? Can I choose for it to regain fewer lost wounds than the D3 roll generated? Incarn's ethereal form. This is the thing where it heals when people die, right? Each time it destroys an enemy unit, it regains up to D3 lost wounds. I guess if you wanted to keep it below starting strength for Ynnari detachment ability things, you could always choose to regenerate it up to 11 out of 12, right? I feel like it's an interesting one. Up to definitely feels like you can choose the number of wounds that you regenerate. But I understand the ruling. I feel like it should just say it regains D3 lost wounds. Because it does have the clarifier that the wounds have to have been lost. So there's no way to argue that you could increase it above its starting wounds cap. But the up to definitely implies that you should be able to choose a fewer number. But that does mean that the Incarn can randomly accidentally heal itself out of being below starting strength to generate the Ynnari stuff. Yeah. Yeah, we just got to keep hitting Ynnari while they're down, I guess. After we like leveled the most insanely transformative detached ability rework in like the history of the edition on Ynnari, we just might as well just keep hitting their random abilities. Pretty wild. We talked about Tyranids, talked about Chaos Demons, talked about Chaos Knights. Let's go to Chaos Space Marines. Cabal of Chaos. You cannot give Cord models the Psyker keyword. Okay. So you can't like give a Cord Demon Prince Psyker? Womp. Okay. Fair enough, I guess. Here's the big one. This is a big, huge one. If I use Cults of the Dark Gods to add Plague Marines to my Chaos Space Marines army, does the Plague Marines infused by the Blessings of Nurgle ability have any effect? The answer is no. They lose the ability. Get fucked. Get out of here. So here's the weird thing about that is that this ability has been wildly controversial because obviously Death Guard are really good. Plague Marines are on everybody's mind. And also this like buffs like a lot of like Renegade Raiders and stuff, sort of detachments. Plague Marines said, right, that when they shot at an enemy unit, that unit was afflicted. Affliction is a component of the army ability, the Contagious Nurgle army ability, but has no requirements on it, right? So the Death Guard army ability is that you afflict enemies within an aura of yourself. Also, here's what affliction does. While you're afflicted, you get -1 toughness. Choose a contagion, you get -1 on that contagion. All of the stuff beyond you have an aura that afflicts people is not locked to any keywords at all. It never says that it requires your army to be Death Guard. It never says that it's in effect only if certain keyword restrictions are fulfilled. It only says, here's what happens when you afflict people. So rules as written, the Plague Marines could... If you enter Plague Marines in your army, you choose a contagion at the start of the game, and when Plague Marines shoot someone, they give it -1 toughness and whatever that contagion you chose is. However, that was very controversial because there have been other rulings elsewhere that specific army abilities are not in effect out of faction, even though in some cases they are. Genestealer cults is the big example, where if Genestealer cults are able to take Imperial Guard units that have abilities that reference voice of command. Nothing has voice of command, and you don't have the correct keywords to use voice of command, but the ruling was you could use voice of command if it's referenced in your abilities. The exact opposite ruling has now been leveled on Plague Marines, which, to be fair, I think is better for balance, because Plague Marines being able to provide -1 toughness and -1 save to literally anything in a Chaos Space Marine army that already has like occasionally phenomenal shooting, probably good. But also not technically rules as written. Pretty fucking wild, dude. I like this FAQ because we have a concrete answer to it. I don't like this FAQ because it does establish a new precedent, but it is what it is, chat. Does Overwatch working as Deep Strike? Yeah. Anytime you're set up on the battlefield within line of sight and range, you can be overwatched. Which also includes disembarking transports. Is the other thing. Maybe Chaos Space Marines should just get their own datasheet variants. Yeah, it would probably be like simpler. That would be kind of cool. Like they could release like an index Cults of the Dark Gods, and it's just 4 datasheets that have rules for Chaos Space Marine versions of those units. But I don't know. This also works too. Then we could do some sort of lessened version of Contagions of Nurgle. They just have like a little bitty version of like, when you're within 6 inches of them, you get -1 toughness. Like, okay. It's actually probably fairly playable. But this is fine, honestly. I like, if I were to be worried about a particular cult infantry unit, it would not be Plague Marines. It would probably be it would probably be Noise Marines for sure. And Noise Marines are the ones that get all the play right now. And obviously a lot of people are playing Rubric Marines now too. Although the Rubric Marines, their core datasheet actually got kind of worse in some instances, because they gained wounds and some stats, but they lost critical AP on their flamers in the update. So it was kind of a side grade. Although they're cheaper now, so they're fine. It definitely, Plague Marines don't feel as powerful as Noise Marines, though, out of faction, in my opinion. Black Legion detachment, give Abaddon all the marks. Let him join cult units. What would he join? That would be cool. Corn Berserkers? I don't know. The Bolter can be AP3 in Raiders. Yeah, that's true. AP3 ignore cover. That's pretty solid. But you're just going to take Flamers anyway. Let's be real. We're taking Flamers. Astra Militarum. Can you use reinforcements unit? The reinforcement stratagem on a unit that is battle shocked? No. Makes sense. They're battle shocked. Can't be targeted. Number 2. If a unit contains 2 models equipped with Voxcaster, can you attempt to generate 1 CP twice when the bear's unit is targeted by a strategy? The answer is no. That's interesting. I guess it's like, it's in like Acadian Shock Troopers, right? They have it. They can they take 2 Voxcasters per per 10? Yeah, for every 10 models, 1 can be equipped with a Voxcaster. The Voxcaster says each time you target the bearer's unit with a stratagem, roll 1d6. Interesting. So it feels like rules as written, you should be able to target. You should be able to roll multiple. I actually think I've done that before. I think if I had multiple Voxcasters in a big unit, I think I've rolled multiple dice because of the multiple Voxcasters. That's actually interesting. Given how rare it is that like that matters, because you're either discarding stratagems or you have a CP generator elsewhere, that's a weird one to nerf. And also, it's another nerf that like kind of doesn't really make that much sense. Bizarre. I really don't like this update, chat. Oh, this feels like extra cognitive load that we really don't need. Can you attempt to generate 1 CP from a unit containing a Voxcaster when targeting with reinforcements? No. Yeah, you're dead. The Ursula Creed's trying to radio the Voxcaster. Like, we need more men. We need send in your reinforcements, and it's just like a corpse holding a phone on the other end of the line. Why aren't you responding? Ma'am, they've been obliterated. Someone just nuked them. They're gone. They can't hear you. Can you do a thing that the core will say you can't? No. Listen, with these updates, they also then say that if you have 2 instances of warrior ability, can use both of them. The answer is no. Like, why? I don't get it. I don't understand it. But I guess I don't know. They were just sleeping. Some of these questions are sad, yeah. Some of them are bizarre. The Grey Knight one gets me. Did you mean to write this weapon profile? Yes, we did. That's a peak. That's perfect. That's a perfect question. I have no notes. Moving on. Chaos Beast Marines Cabal of Chaos we talked about already. Necrons. Can a Cryptothrall that has used its systematic vigor to fight on death later fight again if returned to its unit before that's unit selected to fight? That's sick, actually. What? So if you're playing Awakened Dynasty, you eat an attack, put it on a Cryptothrall, he punches the enemy, and then you use reactive reanimation to bring the Cryptothrall back. He punches you again during your normal fight selection. That's so cool. That makes total sense, and I love it. Fun. That's fun. That's super fun. I like that one. Can we have more of those? Can we have more little silly things we can do? I love doing little silly things. Emperor's Children. We'll move on before we go on to the other big stuff. Well, using Carnival of Excess for purposes of the demonic empowerment rule. So this gives you sustained hits 1, and if you already have sustained hits, you gain critical 5-ups. If your unit already has a weapon with sustained hits, regardless of the numerical modifier, it is an unmodified hit roll of a 5+ for such a weapon score critical hit. The answer is yes. Interesting. Is there a commentary about how numerical numbered abilities are treated? I'm sure that there is somewhere. I know there's one that says they don't stack. But the implication here is that sustained hits is an ability, and then the number is separate. So sustained hits 1 is not a separate ability from sustained hits 2. It is the sustained hits ability with a value, which I don't think matters, but it is interesting. But that does mean that Shalaxi Hellbane might actually do something someday. That's cool. Are there any other weird sustained hits demons that we can make benefit from that? I think it's mostly Shalaxi. Man, if Shalaxi had sustained on her melee weapons, she'd actually be super duper torqued in this detachment. That's why you're playing Fulgrim. But the problem is her gun's so random already that it doesn't feel good. If she could empower her gun in another, if she had her gun is D6 shots, sustain 3, strength 9, AP 2, D3 damage. The joke is that it's like the old sorcerer psychic attack where it was either 0 or 1 trillion damage. And it's listen, if I roll 6s here because it's Lanesh's number, you die, right? Because I'll get sustained and I'll get devastating. But if you don't do that, nothing happens. It's just actually just the worst, most trash ability ever. But getting it on critical 5s is cool. It just feels like the attack volume is low for a character who costs 400 points. D6 shots, the profile is really cool. Critical 5-up, sustain 3, strength 9, AP 2, D3 devastating is actually sick. But the problem is the D6 shots, because you could very well just roll 1 shot, roll a 2, and then do 1 damage. Okay, cool. If this was a D3 plus 3 shotgun, she might unironically be good. That's a fun errata. I like that. I bet there's other instances in which that matters too. I just don't know what they are. All right. Tournament companion stuff. Let's see if we have any changes. If you destroy the bodyguard of an attached unit that meets the criteria for Cull the Horde, meaning it has a starting strength of 13, but the leader unit survives, do you score VP for destroying the bodyguard unit? If the bodyguard unit alone would have a starting strength of 13 plus, then yes. Otherwise, to no. So you would have to kill... example, if you destroy 16 cultists, but their firebrand leader survives, could you take 16 cultists? Is that allowed? You score the victory points for that unit. If you destroy a 10-strong cultist mob, but don't destroy the dark commune attached to it, you do not score VP. Okay. So you actually have to kill that starting strength worth of models. Or worth of models in units. Units composed of models with that starting strength in order to actually fulfill the criteria, which is good, I guess. Was that the only change? Yeah, their base sizes or their base size updates? I don't want to go through all these, chat. There were 2, I think, that were like weird and probably bugged. There are 2 I remember. One of them was Tyranids. Yay! They fixed the Hive Tyrant, because the Hive Tyrant was at 50 mil in the update, which was clearly wrong. Was there another one? Oh, Harridan had like a weird didn't even list a base size, which is weird. Where's that fucker? Unique. Oh, great. Thanks. That could mean anything. Is it the 2-inch base? The little 2-inch base that comes with him? Oh, Court of the Archon was the other one. Archon. Court of the Archon, it does have an update for it. So we get to take all that stuff out of my base size errata that we did. Let me just do that real quick so I remember. I think that's like basically all the updates, chat. Did we miss anything? We went through core rules. We went through all these factions. New drop pod. Fucking, I'm sick. Let's go. Yeah. Oh, base size on Lord of Contagion went back to 40. Ooh, interesting. Because it's on the Felthius model, who's 40 mil. Does the Defiler still have a base? Yeah, that's worth looking at. Honestly, I hope it does. I know people are gonna... hot take, unpopular opinion, more things with bases, please. It does have a base still. It does still have a base. I know people... I think that they should... So one thing that they don't do in 40k, which I wish they did, is... And we've done this in Breachstorm, and some other games have done this, I know. But the physical size of the model should come into play when it comes to playtesting and balancing. And I don't think it does. So like Defilers are like a kind of a big beefy boy, but like you compare them to like a Vindicator and it's similar, right? They have a bit worse save, but more wounds. Like, okay, fair enough. But they're so much bigger that should come into effect, right? That should be considered on their data sheet. So they like bigger stuff should be faster, have more maneuver effects, probably be harder to kill because it's easier to draw on SA2, and maybe generally be like more big, high impact. But a Defiler is like just like sort of like this medium vehicle, which doesn't feel great. I don't know, but that's just my 2 thoughts about it. It doesn't feel like they take into account when it comes to balancing. It doesn't feel like they take into account the physicality of the model. Honored Dragoon Crawler is a great example. I like that Honored Dragoon Crawler has a 2+ armor save, which is good. I think that's probably the reason for it. But it's so big that it's difficult to maneuver around. But it's only like 10 wounds. It doesn't feel like it is commensurate with the size of the miniature. Make vehicles tanky and expensive again? Make big vehicles tanky and expensive for sure. Defiler, like, Defiler should basically be a greater demon. You know? Like, Defiler should be a big fucking scary boy. Yesterday I said I'd change rules to true line of sight. No, from true line of sight. I would not use true line of sight. If I were to rewrite 40K's rules, I would not use true line of sight. Greater demons are hardly that great anymore. I don't know, chat. I think they're pretty cool. You seen a great unclean one absorb attacks? Those guys don't want to die. They live forever. Unkillable. Literally cannot be killed by any humans. I'm having a bad hair day today, by the way. What would I use instead? I think I talked about it on stream. You want to talk about it again? Chat, you want me to go? Should we do it exactly the same segment as we did yesterday? Listen, you want me to complain about line of sight and show you this website? I will do it every time. Check this cool website out, chat. www.breachstorm.com. Isn't that cool? What a cool website. It's got a little video. It's got some miniatures. Look at these little guys. That's pretty sweet. It also has free rules to this miniature game. Wow. All free. That's crazy. You know what else is cool? We look at the core rulebook. There's a diagram for line of sight, and it explains exactly how I would write line of sight rules for a miniatures game, which is crazy because I already have. It's this one. Check this out. Here's my base. I don't care about the bits on top of the base. Guns, swords, who gives a crap? None of that matters. I look at my base. I draw a line from my base to the other base. There's line of sight blocking stuff like enemy models or terrain features. If the line I'm drawing crosses over either of those, it cannot be used for line of sight. If it doesn't cross over anything intervening, and there's a line between the two bases that is uninterrupted, we have line of sight. That's it. That's the whole rule. It's literally the entire rule. It's very simple. There's a little bit of idiosyncrasy when it comes to larger stuff. For example, this big guy, he's a big boy. If his size value is higher than the models in front of him, they do not block line of sight to him. So in this case, this guy, you can see this guy, because friendly models don't block line of sight. You're considered to be a crack team, so you can see through them. He tells them to duck, and they duck. This guy does not block line of sight to this guy because he's a little tiny baby boy, and he's a big stompy robot. So you can see him. That's it. That's the entire... Those are all of the line of sight rules. That's it. That's the whole game. Ta-da! Pretty cool, right? That's how I would do it. It seems so simple and easy. I know. It's wild. It's absolutely crazy, chat. Greater demons. Corn greater demons always seem scary. Yeah. They hit really hard. They're really easy to kill, but they hit super hard. I don't know. I think greater demons are in a really good spot right now. Definitely not biased by the fact that I'm 3-0 in Black Crusade Online with 6 greater demons on my list. Don't pay attention to that. That's not it. I would never. I would never. Base to base would be so much easier, but so many players would lose it. Well, then we can lose them. We don't need them. Get them out of here. The other thing too is that this system, you can construct rules for like something like this for hull measuring units. Like you use a projection, like downwards projection for hull measurers, or you just give them bases. That's the other thing. I do think that we are at a position, we're at a point in the game where we have a flexible enough base system that we could give almost everything in the game a base, and it would be fine. Like most vehicles fit very neatly on the oval bases, or the big round bases or whatever. And you could just do that. We don't need them to be hull measuring for the most part. Super heavies would be tough, but like 99% of the game just fits on one of the bases in the game already. And I'm gonna level. I think based vehicles are cool because they let you do cool modeling things that you couldn't otherwise do. Like you could model your Leman Russ hull down. Wouldn't that be sick? Or like busting through a wall or something, which is like just literally a modeling opportunity you do not have in the current rules. Straight up gone. Running the chaos, the 6K on ice lift from my test stream at an RTT this weekend. Oh, dude, I feel bad for your opponents. That list is so dumb. I did beat it the other day, but I think I certainly could have lost that game for sure. Based vehicles are based. It's so true. Like, I think, what game was I looking at? Is it? There was a game that had Star Wars Legion, I think. Star Wars Legion does vehicles so well. I have a tank, a clone tank, in my shelf over there that I should put on my display somewhere because I'm very proud of it. But Star Wars Legion does vehicles in such a cool way because they, first of all, I'll talk about these guys for a sec. I'll glaze Star Wars Legion for a moment because Star Wars Legion has really cool mechanics. If you want to look at, I have some problems with it, especially in its like ergonomics. It's like ergonomically kind of weird, I guess. So it takes a long time to play. But if we find a good picture, the problem is that bases are hard to find pictures of. Oh, here we go. Nope, bad one. I'm being hoisted by my own petard here. Like, look at these cool bases, I say, as I look at a bunch of people who modeled over their bases. All right, here you go. Here's Star Wars Legion. So here's a vehicle in Star Wars Legion. This is a land speeder, the snow speeder. All of the bases have weapon arcs modeled into them. So this is a cool thing you do when you take your game design seriously and you mesh like the physical and design of your miniatures and game components with your mechanics. Star Wars Legion, first of all, it's a front to back measuring system. So you have a ruler that you place in this notch every time you move a miniature. So all of the infantry are on these little, I think they're 25s. They're like this weird 25 mil base, but they have a ruler that locks into that base when you move the model. Pretty cool. You do the same thing for vehicles, but you put it on the front of the base and then move it to the back of the base. One thing that does is it actually gives you an incentive to play larger based models because it makes them physically faster. The downside is that it's more difficult to place them, so they're less maneuverable, but they could travel greater distance across the table. That's pretty cool, to be honest. But the other thing too is that they model all of the weapon arcs into the bases. So every vehicle is based, and the bases have like a mechanical effect. Now, I do remember seeing some dioramas built on top of these bases that I was really impressed by, and now I can't find any pictures of them, and it makes me sad. But some people take the opportunity for vehicles with bases to do really cool modeling on them. And I'm gonna see if I can find the example that I'm thinking of. But if I can't, then it'll be what it is. It will be fine. There was a clone tank busting through a wall. I remember somebody built that was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And again, the game does not use true line of sight, so you can do that. Or at least it did. It released with true line of sight, but they moved away from it. Now I can't find it anymore, chap. I'm sorry. Oh, here's one. There's a guy. This is their staff challenge. But these are supposed to be crashed vehicles. I think this is just the base size for this thing, and it's like crashed into a tree. That's kind of cool. That is broken though. That's a broken vehicle. Not quite the same. But anyway, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with you once you put vehicles on bases, and it makes the gameplay so much smoother and simpler. So that's what I'm a proponent of that. Too bad AMG keeps changing the rules. It was really fun when FRG still had it. Yeah. I heard that the balance is better with AMG, but the constant rules changes was always kind of a problem with that game. There's an AI generated Star Wars miniature game that's being showcased on Google to me right now, which looks like trash. Get out of here, AI, you suck. I did have some issues with so Star Wars Legion's it's an alternating activation game. I think it's a really good example of when people go, "Hey, I wish 40K was an alternating activation game." I think you just have to teach them Star Wars Legion to make them recognize why that's like kind of silly. Because Star Wars Legion takes a really long time to play, and it has about half the model count of 40K, and honestly, simpler mechanics. But it's like basically designed explicitly to take a really long time. The games like it goes longer rounds. All the games are like end of game score. All the missions are like end of game scoring. The fact that it's alternating activation like adds like 30% to your activation phase time. It's a lot. And I think that it's a good example of like how alternating activation doesn't really work very well. But it has incredibly cool vehicle mechanics. It has incredibly cool. It does have really cool things that it does with the alternating activation system. You issue your army like orders every turn, which come from a deck of cards. You have like a set of, they're called command cards, and they are available to your army when you go to when you build your list based on the characters inside your list. You like build a hand of these cards, and then each turn you play one card face down, and whoever plays the card with the highest initiative value goes first in that turn. And each card gives you a varying amount. It gives you special abilities and a varying amount of control over the order in which you activate. Based on the initiative value. So higher initiative cards tend to give you less control over the course of the round and potentially worse special abilities, but you get to activate first. That's really cool. I like that. It also has really cool mission design. Though I shouldn't say that. It has really cool scenario design. Its mission design is fucking trash. The actual objective play in Star Wars Legion is horrible. However, the way you get there is that both players come to the table with a deck of mission cards, which are like deployment zone, special effects, and the actual objective, and you draft those to construct a mission. Which means that if you have 9 cards in your mission deck, so there's like 81 potential combinations of those cards that you'll actually play, which both players have control over, which is really cool. The actual objectives on the table are some of the worst I've ever seen, but it's okay. Sounds like Kill Team. Yeah, it's like the alternating activation always has a similar effect every time. And people always like argue with me on this, but they're wrong. It's but like you increase the playtime of your game by about 50% when you add alternating activation to it. Just standard by people thinking and considering over their turns. You make no mechanical changes, and all you do is add alternating activations instead of I go, you go. Immediately 50% longer games. This game would actually be super fast if it was just a regular sort of turn by turn game. But instead it's like a minimum 4 hours. It's very, very long. For a game with like 20 models per side, which is wild. Balance has been worse. Oh, that sucks. I'm sorry. I don't know anything about Star Wars Legion. I have more recently. I haven't played in probably 3 years at this point. So I don't know any of the new stuff. But I guess they released like a bunch of new stuff. They released like new factions and stuff. They released there's a 5th faction, right? What is it with miniature games? It's like a constant thing. What is it with miniature games and having like the worst designed websites of all time? I think we've talked about this on stream before. But it's like I can't just like see the factions because everything has to be broken down into like a little um like sale thing. They have to sell me whatever. Product gallery. But if you go to the product gallery, it's just a literally endless. Oh, it's nothing. Oh no, here it is. It's just every single box they've ever made. Like, let me sort this by faction. I don't understand. Oh, here we go. Here we go. We can sort by faction. All right, just kidding. I just didn't see the drop down. So they added Shadow Collective, which are just like sort of rando scummy guys. Okay. And then I think they added Ewoks. They're like a rebel thing, right? I do like that little effect. Ooh. Wait, how come the rebels can take riot control troopers? Okay. Doesn't make sense, but okay. Look at all these Ewoks. Nice. Infinity is the worst website. Yeah, Infinity is like, it's cool as like I think we talked about it. It like you have to do too much as a miniature game website because you have to like showcase miniatures, try to sell product, introduce people to like the lore and background, and also like showcase artwork as well. And the problem is like you can't do all of it. It's basically like ineffective. Whereas a video game is like, hey, here's some artwork and gameplay stills. Also, here's how to buy the one thing we sell, which is the game. Whereas this is like, here's 25. Each faction is like 30 boxes you could buy individually. It's just I think a problem with miniature games in general because they have it's so many individual product SKUs. But yeah. Haven't played Legion since it released. One model left a bad taste in your mouth. What model is it? Like a miniature did or like a stat line? I liked the core mechanics, but I don't jive with all of the individual design choices that they made. There's also a weird thing that they do in Legion, which I don't love, which is that they have a lot of like numbered keywords. Everything's about keywords. Like the entire game is US hard basically. Which means it's very difficult to decipher what a unit does by looking at their card. Because the card is like, here's your weapon profile. It has a bunch of abilities. Here's your unit. It has a bunch of abilities. And then that's it. And you have to go to the rulebook to look at each one of those abilities, which usually isn't that bad. Like you pick it up pretty quickly. But then the abilities might be numbered. So you have like numerical abilities. Like in the example in 40K would be like if I have sustained hits 1 or 2, right? Or crit anti-monster 4 or 5. Except that having sustained hits 1 has a fundamentally different effect in Star Wars Legion than having sustained hits 2. Which is like, Infinity did the same thing. I don't know if they do anymore because I haven't played in ages, but Infinity did the same thing where they would have like levels of effect. Oh, I have martial arts level 4 or level 3 or whatever, which is a different ability than martial arts level 2. Instead of just renaming it or making one have like stacked effects, they just gave them all different numbers the same way. It was blew my goddamn mind. And then a lot of them are like self-referential within the rule book. They'll be like, this ability number 2 gives you a second ability in addition to doing this other thing. And then you have to go look up what the second ability is. It was very annoying. As someone who didn't play very often, it was a very, very difficult game to decipher. We talk about it, Legion. We were talking about Legion for a little bit. We somebody got me on the tangent of line of sight rules, which I will always discuss different games that do it better than Warhammer. Oh, but anyway, chats. I don't know if we have anything else to cover. I think that's mostly it. How's everybody feeling? Yoda was the fave. Yoda's cool. Although Yoda was after my time, I think. Actually, I didn't play with Yoda in the format. I just played Obi-Wan. I played Anakin for a little bit too, although I don't think I liked him as much. I did like Obi-Wan though. Obi-Wan's very cool. He was like army support commander. Loved that guy. But anyway, Chan, or in Captain Rex, Obi-Wan and Captain Rex. Captain Rex is really good. Love that. He made everybody really fast. Whee! He would like scout everyone a million inches. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap things up there. Thanks for hanging out with me, everybody. A little bit of an impromptu stream. I was planning on doing something a little bit more structured. And then Games Workshop was like, hey, let's update every single faction in the game. Sick. Thanks, G-Dub. You're the best. So that's what we talked about today. I will be gone tomorrow. The embarking into transporters with bases is cracking. Yeah, it's that. Man, that was very emblematic of this update. A lot of it felt like knee-jerk responses to things that weren't very well thought through. But anyway, I will be gone tomorrow because I'm traveling to ATC. At the end of this stream, I'm just going to forward you to the ATC stream. I'm going to be over there streaming the American Team Championship. I'm going to leave probably like either late tonight or early tomorrow to start heading it over to Tennessee to set up my stream for that. You can expect a new player tutorial or a getting started in Death Guard video tomorrow, which will go live while I'm traveling. And otherwise, I'll see you on Friday. I'll be live Friday through Sunday for that team event. So please come hang out with me for that. I'll be live right here on this channel. And on the stream page that I'm about to send you to at the end of this. So I'll see you then, everybody. Remember to keep it classy, folks. Have happy wargaming. And I will see you in the next one.